but you just have to be able to prove that you can do it. And these reg guides get really confusing in some cases because this is the reg guide that applies to the general nuclear plant, the plant where you're generating electricity and things. If you have computer-controlled equipment there, that has another reg guide. The coating that you use for paint, that has another reg guide. And there's another reg guide. And they all have different standards. So you end up like this guy juggling all these different reg guides and all these different codes and things. And it's like, what applies here? This is really confusing. Because, and on top of all that, after you have all these rules that the NRC comes out with, all these different reg guides, all these different standards that they have, the license is still the king. When you, if you happen to have a nuclear reactor in your backyard and you want to go ahead and license it with the NRC, whatever you put in that license document is actually what controls you. They address the reg guides, they address different versions of NQA1 and so forth, but that's still where the power is. With the NRC, NQA1, quality assurance plan, procedures, test, but most of all, the thing we deal with most of the time is audits. We have audits constantly. We audit constantly and we are audited constantly, because that's what they use to ensure that we are following the requirements they have placed upon us. I don't think you can read this, but that's okay. Because one of the things, and I don't know if this is true in other industries or not, is the NRC is really, really fussy about the people who do auditing. They make absolutely sure that people are qualified to do the audits that apply to the nuclear industry. And this is the form that you have to fill out to be an auditor, and it talks about things like this. An auditor, to be a certified lead auditor for an NRC-controlled nuclear facility, you have to have at least 10 credits. That's where you start. You get those credits from your educational background. An associate's degree is 1 credit. If your associate's degree happens to be in engineering or QA or science or things like that, you get 2 credits. A bachelor's will give you 2 credits, engineering and so forth will give you 3, and if you have a master's, you can add a credit to that. So you can have 4 credits. You have I have an MBA, so I get all these. They actually include business in here for some reason, so I get 4 credits for this. So that's my education background. Then you have to have experience. We can get a total of 9 credits. You have, remember, at the end, you have to have 10. 1 credit per year in engineering, manufacturing, construction, operation, or maintenance. So you can get up to 5 credits for that. And then you can get additional credits if it happens to be in a nuclear facility, if it happens to be in quality assurance, if it happens to be in auditing, or if it happens to be in a combination of those. You can get more credits if you have professional competence. Some credential or certificate of professional competence. As far as I know, in my experience, membership in ASQ or any ASQ certification doesn't count. Sorry, but in my experience, it has not counted. My company, it doesn't count. Other places I've seen, it doesn't count either, and I don't know why. And then management gets to give you 2 credits if they feel like it.
So what would be an example of a credential?
IEEE stuff they would count that. They're more into that. I'm trying to think of something else that would count as a credential. Some of the certifications in like welding and non-destructive testing and some of the special processes, certifications that you can get outside of the company. But ASQ has not, in my company, and I know in Sandia, Carl was working on that for a long time. I don't know if he's been successful at changing it. At Sandia, ASQ was not considered a professional organization. I don't know why. I don't know if Carl was successful in changing that. So after you get your 10 credits, and you say, okay, I'm ready to be an auditor, your boss has to say that you can communicate with people. And that's worth quite a bit, actually. And you have to be able to communicate in an audit type of setting. I have to go up to Blaine and say, your company is really in deep trouble, but I like you anyway, and we're going to get over this together, or something like that. You know, you have to be able to this audit speak type thing where you tell somebody, this is really awful, but everything, we're really still on good terms. You have to complete auditor training courses from somewhere. You have to participate in 5 audits, at least one of which you are the lead auditor, and somebody's watching over your shoulder and making sure you do it correctly. And you have to take an exam. The exam in our company is 100 questions. You have to get at least 80% when you take the exam. And all that just to become an auditor, and then you have to keep it up. Every year I have to do so many audits to maintain this credential. But one of the things, and audits are really a big thing. I mean, they spend a lot of time on audits and things. They've actually gotten somewhat efficient in the NRC-controlled activities, those that have to do with nuclear power plants. There's two organizations out there. The first is NUPIC, Nuclear Procurement Issues Committee. That's a group of utilities that have gotten together and said, we don't want to waste the time, all of us going and auditing a company and then doing the same thing over and over and over. For one thing, it keeps us busy. I mean, we're constantly having auditors come visit us, and that takes a lot of our time and a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of their time and energy to come and visit us. So they said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to share this. We're going to have a joint audit program. In September of this year, my company will have a visit from NUPIC for 2 weeks, and they will go over everything. And it is painful. It is really painful. And at the end, they will say, we bless you, Areva. You are acceptable. You're fine, hopefully. And that will count for all of the utilities. So the rest of the utilities won't bother us. Well, they thought that was a good idea, so this Nuclear Industry Assessment Committee is suppliers like us that use other suppliers. We can share audits. I'm going to lead a NIAC audit in a couple months of a software company in California. When I finish that, I will make this audit available to all of the companies that have asked for it, that are members of this group, NIAC. So they don't have to go and audit the same company that I just audited. They'll check my credentials to make sure I'm qualified as a lead auditor. They'll check the audit file and make sure that it meets their needs. And they can say, okay, this is good enough for us. We don't need to go do the audit. So this actually saves us a great deal of time and effort. We don't get picked on quite as much because of this. We only have to put up with one audit a year from all the utilities at one time. And our suppliers don't get picked on as much from all the different companies that use them because they only get one audit and those audits are shared. If you can't audit, and sometimes some people won't let us audit. My background is software, and that's the thing I'm most interested in. And many of the software companies say, you are not going to come in and look at us and see how we do our software development. That's all proprietary, it's all secret, and we're not going to tell you how we do it. So they have this process called dedication. Dedication is a very involved, complex process where we have engineers that say, what are the critical characteristics of this thing? Whether this thing is a huge pump, whether it's a 4-inch lag bolt, or whether it's a piece of software, engineers say, what do we really need this for? What's important? Then they set up a plan where we can go and we can inspect this thing and we can decide whether or not it meets our needs. So even though we haven't audited your company, we will take this product that you're providing and we will dedicate it and we will make sure that it works for us. This has become an incredibly big deal. The counterfeit issues that Denny talked about 2 months ago are very much involved in this to make sure that we don't get counterfeit items when we go buy from a company that we haven't audited, and that's a big part of this thing. And there's a group called the Electrical Power Research Institute, EPRI, that writes these huge documents and tells us how to dedicate things. When they started this dedication process, it was all hardware. So they had these things, you know, you measure it, you stretch it, you twist it, you turn it, you bend it, you do all these things you do with hardware, and they said, okay, now we need to dedicate software as well. And it's like, well, we can't exactly bend it, twist it, turn it, stretch it. So EPRI, this group that I've talked about, Electric Power Research Institute, is now working on a plan on how we're going to dedicate software and do the same thing with it. But that way, we have these approved suppliers that we've audited, we can buy from them, and we can also go out and we can dedicate things from other suppliers. That's it. I wasn't sure that was the last slide. Thank you.
Tom, thank you.
Sir.
That was great.
Any questions? Any questions? It's this thing, I talk so fast that nobody ever can keep up.
Okay, where is the small town of Pennsylvania the two of you are from?
Called Lebanon,
Oh, I know where that is.
near Hershey.
I know where that is.
Lebanon?
Lebanon,
No.
L-E-B-A-N-O-N, like the company,
As
the
in
country
As in the
Lebanon.
country.
Okay.
So what's the difference between 10 CFR 50 and
10 CFR 50 establishes the rule, and QA1 implements it. I have exactly a good answer for that. I have even brought it with me. I can show you.
good straight.
This is 10 CFR 50. That's it, Appendix B. This is NQA1. So the NRC comes out with these 6 pages or whatever it is and says, these are the things you have to do, those 18 criteria that I said, and then this is NQA1, and it comes out and it tells you how you're going to do it. This gives you the actual implementation instructions, like the DOE order 414.1D. So this is considerably thicker. That's the 10 CFR 50 is the what, and NQA1 is the how you're going to do it.
So does everybody have to follow NQA1, or can they do their own implementation to try to meet the requirements of 10 CFR?
They can do whatever they want. Excuse me. Reg Guide 1.28 says, if you follow NQA1, we assume that you're meeting the requirements. Anything else, you have to prove it.
What if I don't want to use NQA1, I just want to set my own way I meet the requirements in 10 CFR?
That's fine. You just have to prove it when the NRC comes and audits you.
Okay.
That's interesting that this thing that the world perceives as this giant tiger that we have caged, and the rule is there's no rule.
That's it.
As long as you can prove that you're doing the 18 things.
And the regulatory guides, they conflict with each other. This controls, 1.28 controls software, because NQA1 has a chapter on software. But there's this other reg guide, 1.152, that controls software. 1.163 or something controls. They're all different. They all have different standards, and it's like, okay, we'll try.
Is that
I don't
familiar,
see
Danny?
how that should be any different than what we grew up with.
So don't let your kids or your grandkids live near nuclear reactors.
Is that the lesson in all this?
That's the lesson. Yep. Stay away from nuclear reactors.
Thank you very much.
Is the discipline pretty good between the subs and primes?
Yeah.
You know, I asked, I worked in aerospace for a second-tier contractor. And we're always finding newer versions of plans on the factory floor courtesy of the prime contractor.
We're actually pretty good about that because they come back and they spank us if we do bad.
Thank you all very much.